Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's Beal Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest who positively impacts our community. Today, I welcome Orange County Assessment Appeals Board member Alan Zall. He's a licensed California attorney and a real estate broker. He was appointed to the Assessment Appeals Board last year. He recently taught real estate transactions at Western State Law School in Irvine. Thank you, Alan, for being on Impact OC.
Well, it's a pleasure to be a guest on your show, Don. I think you're doing a great service by providing information on important topics to the people in Orange County.
Thank you. Well, Alan, please explain what's required for you to be considered for an appointment to the Assessment Appeals Board.
Yes, there are several things. There are many requirements. One of them is that you have to be a practicing attorney or CPA or public accountant or an appraiser for at least 5 years. Most of the people that are appointees have much more experience than that, but that's the minimum requirement. Also, there's a lot of paperwork that you need to fill out prior to being appointed. You have to read many pages and take an exam at which you have to get at least 80% correct on, and there is a requirement of a 2-hour ethics course. And let me just talk a little bit more about what the Assessment Appeals Board does. They deal with appeals by people who either own commercial property, industrial property, or residential property. Also, they deal with business inventory issues. So it's much broader than a lot of people realize. So I think that's important for them to understand what the jurisdiction and what type of issues that the Assessment Appeals Board deals with.
Why do taxpayers appeal their assessments?
Because they feel that sometimes they are being assessed for too high an amount, which will then affect the amount of the property taxes that they are required to pay. So what's important for them, if they feel that the assessed value is too high, they should go ahead and they should have a conversation with the assessor's office and talk with them, because I've seen many cases where after they talk with the people in the assessor's office and provide them data supporting their position, they can amicably work out a resolution and have a stipulation, which would be an agreement as to what the value of the property should be. So I think that's really the first step. If they feel like the amount that they are being assessed is too high, if that does not work to their satisfaction, then they can always file a formal appeal.
So they don't have to file a formal appeal. They could actually talk to someone right at the get-go to determine if maybe what they are choosing to do is correct.
That's right. And they're very good in responding to people who do contact them. They can provide them written evidence if they get that to show what the actual market value of the property is. So my point would be prepared before you contact the people in the assessor's office, do your homework, and then present the information to them and informally discuss it with them. And perhaps you can resolve it with them without actually going through the process of filing the formal appeal and appearing at a hearing to have the Assessment Appeals Board review whether or not the amount that you are being assessed on your property taxes is a correct amount.
Explain that process.
Sure. Well, what happens is you fill out paperwork. You have an option of whether you want a single hearing officer or a 3-person panel. Generally, and for the most part, it's a 3-person panel that would decide. The hearings are Monday to Thursday There are no hearings on Friday. They always start at 9 a.m. in the morning. The hearing is in Santa Ana. There's two rooms in the Old County Courthouse, and there's one that's in the new administration building, which they're located at Santa Ana Boulevard, and the cross street would be Broadway. And there'll be a scheduled time, and then you can go to the hearing. The hearings are recorded. You can present evidence, and I'll talk a little bit about what type of evidence you would want to present. If it's a residential property, you would want to get market comparables, other properties that are very similar to yours, and you would make adjustments to those numbers. So for example, let's say your house is a 4-bedroom house and a house sold very close to you that was a 3-bedroom. You would have to adjust the price, right, and increase it because you have 4 bedrooms instead of 3. So you would come in with the evidence to substantiate what you feel is a correct value for your property. Now, if it were a commercial property, you would be looking at the income stream that you receive. So let's say that it is an office building. You would look at how much rent are you receiving, how much expenses is there on that property, and what is the net income from that property, because those are the variables that will go ahead and that will affect the value for that particular property. At the hearing, you'll be sworn in as a witness. You can come with an agent, or you can present the information yourself if you feel like you're capable to do that. But you do have the option to have an agent present the information for you. The assessor will have an opportunity to present their evidence. You will have an opportunity to present your evidence, and then it will be considered. Questions may be asked by either the assessor's representative, or the applicant may ask the assessor questions. And then what will happen is the board will make a decision. They will take it under submission, which means you will get a written decision usually within 2 weeks of your hearing date.
How is property assessed?
They look at what the market comps are for the area, and they determine based on computer information. They have access to a lot of computer information. They have information on previous sales, and then they will look at the sales in that area and try to determine what would be a fair price. Of course, one has to realize there's generally a range of values of where that may come in. And so obviously there is some degree of subjectivity on the part of the assessor's office, just like there is subjectivity on the part of the homeowner. What I would say is, of the assessment appeals that we have heard, if the property owner comes in with good evidence, it's not a scientific number, but I would say at least 50% of the people that come in with good, credible evidence do have some change in what the number is for their assessed value of the property. So the key is to do your preparation, to document the information, and be able to present that in an organized fashion to the people on the Assessment Appeals Board. They will listen carefully to what you say, and then they will make a decision based upon any information that has been presented to them.
Prior to them appearing before you, do you get any written material to look at before you see the person who's before you?
No, they give us the written information on the day of the hearing. Whatever evidence or exhibits they have, that's presented to us at the day of the hearing. We then listen to everything, review the evidence, and then we talk about it, after the hearings are over in private session, and then a decision is made on how we're going to handle it. Are we going to agree with what the assessor's representative said, or are we going to agree with what the applicant has said as to their opinion of value?
Is there a limit as to how much property could be assessed? I believe it's 2%.
That what you're talking about, Prop 13 on potential increases. That would be 2% a year, but there are exceptions, Don, where like if there's been additional construction or improvement, then that can increase the value of the property. Like let's say they put in a swimming pool, or let's say they added another bedroom, then of course the assessor's office would be correct to increase what the baseline value for the assessment for that particular property would be. Or if there's a sale of the property, then they have what the sales price is. And assuming it's a sale that's a fair market sale where it's a willing buyer, a willing seller, with both people acting in good faith, and they will look at what the dollar value is for that particular sale. So there are some exceptions to where the Prop 13 2% would not apply.
So why don't you share with us some stories?
Yes, I can do that. One example would be we had a dermatologist come in, and what he had used a procedure on this model's face, and she had not liked the results of it, and so there was some negative publicity. And what happened was the dermatologist was saying that the assessor had taken the cost for the equipment and they had depreciated it yearly. But the dermatologist's position was that because of technology, that equipment had become obsolete, and it had been several years since that laser equipment had come out, and he could establish in writing that the fair market value of that particular equipment was worth much, much less than what the assessor's office determined based upon the cost of the machine and the yearly depreciation. So the people on the Assessment Appeals Board felt that it was appropriate to reduce the value of that equipment to what it would be worth if he sold it now. And so in that case, we substantially reduced the number that the equipment was worth.
What percentage is residential that you deal with? What percentage is business inventory?
There's a lot more residential than there is commercial. However, we do get interesting cases on business inventory. We had one where there was a yacht that was over 100 feet, and it was assessed at $15 million. And there was an issue of what, because it had docked in different ports, and there was an issue of whether or not Orange County would be able to go ahead and to tax that particular boat. So sometimes it could be boat. We've had another example where we've had a golf course where there was an issue of what should this particular golf course be assessed at. So it's pretty diverse. It could be anything like an office building. It could be, like a boat. It could be residential. It could be an apartment building. It's very broad on the different types of property, Don, that could come before us as something that, as a assessment appeals board, we need to look at and determine what would be an appropriate and fair price that the taxes should be on that particular property.
And it starts when they get the bill, the assessment bill, many months before it's due.
Right. They will get a bill, an itemized bill that will list the details. and then they need to look at it when it comes, determine if they feel that it's an appropriate amount. If it is, fine, then they can go ahead and pay it. If they feel like it's inflated, then I think the best thing would be for them to start doing investigation, do their homework, make phone call to the assessment office. They can talk with the deputy assessor, go over it and kind of talk back and forth informally and determine if there is a possibility to resolve it. And if they have their evidence, and the assessor's office will then tell them their evidence and what they're basing upon. And they may decide after the conversation.
Are those kind of companies legitimate?
It depends. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. I think it depends upon the sophistication of the person appealing, and if they feel like they're qualified to do it and do their necessary homework, they can be fine. Or sometimes they will get an agent who may be a real estate broker, might be a real estate appraiser, it might be an attorney, but I think it's basically personal preference.
Why do you like being on the board?
Because I feel like I'm serving the public, and I feel like my background's suitable because of my legal training, my real estate background, my MBA, and the fact that I've taught at university and also law school. And it's rewarding to go in and analyze it, and when it's appropriate, we will decrease the amount on the tax bill, and if it's appropriate, then we will sustain what the assessor's determination of value is.
Is there major changes in what the bill ultimately could be, either up or down?
There can be changes depending upon the circumstances, but really every case is unique, and we have to evaluate every case just based on that particular case, because there's so many different variations done and so many different variables that can enter into how the assessor comes up with the value, because it's a very challenging job to do that for certain properties.
If people want more information, is there a website they can go to?
Yes, there's a lot of information on the assessor's website. You can look up the assessor's rules as well, a procedure, so that the person will feel more positive and feel more informed before they actually go into the hearing. So I would recommend that they read that material before, so when they go in there, they will be more confident in how the procedure works. But let me emphasize, it's not formal rules of evidence like it would be in court. It's a much more informal circumstance as far as the evidence. And the board members definitely try to make all the parties that come in feel comfortable with the process, with the procedure, and allow them to present their case, ask questions, and give whatever information they choose to present on the day of the hearing.
Thank you for being on Impact OC, Alan Zall. He's an Orange County Assessment Appeals Board member and also a licensed California attorney and real estate broker. And I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.